Rejection is a reality all kidney transplant recipients should be aware of. There are several types of rejection. Two common ones are clinical acute rejection and silent rejection, also known as subclinical acute rejection. Clinical acute rejection is what most people think of when they hear kidney rejection. An increase in serum creatinine levels suggests your transplanted kidney is not working as well as it was previously. Subclinical acute rejection is the earliest form of rejection that your transplanted kidney can experience, oftentimes going undetected, hence the term silent. Historically, silent rejection could only be detected through an invasive needle biopsy procedure. However, there are now non-invasive options available, including the omnigraph gene expression blood test. By detecting and properly treating silent rejection, your transplanted kidney may avoid significant damage. However, if subclinical acute rejection is left undetected, this may result in a whole host of side effects, leading to worse long-term outcomes of the transplanted kidney. With non-invasive options such as the omnigraph gene expression blood test, you can gain peace of mind knowing that your transplanted kidney is not silently rejected. To learn more about silent rejection, please visit getaheadofrejection.com.
Hey guys, welcome to Hope with Jonathan. I'm your host, Jonathan Trailer. Tonight, guys, our podcast is brought to you by Eurofins Transplant Genomics. And if you want more information on that, go to getaheadofrejection.com and you can go over to their website and definitely check out a lot of different information about some blood testing that they have to early detect rejection. If you're wondering about rejection, silent rejection is common and it happens in about 25% of transplant patients, but knowing earlier equals that you can get treated earlier. And listen, guys, I'm really excited about tonight's interview. This is going to be a great podcast. We have two awesome guests to bring onto the show, and I can't wait to bring them on, guys. Welcome to the show, Wendy and Michelle.
Shake it, baby.
Hey, welcome, Wendy and Michelle.
Hi, thank you.
Hi, Jonathan. Hi, Wendy. Thanks for having us.
No problem at all. Welcome to Hope with Jonathan. I want to let you guys go ahead and introduce yourself. I guess we'll go ahead and start with Wendy.
So, hi, I'm Wendy. I actually was diagnosed with lupus when I was 21. And that's what ultimately led to my kidney failure. I've had two transplants. The first one, my son was a living donor, but that one unfortunately failed due to blood clots, and I ended up being diagnosed with antiphospholipid syndrome. So that kidney only lasted for 4 days. And then I did have a second transplant in October of 2018, and so far that one is functioning well, and I'm doing well at almost 3.5, 4 years now.
Awesome. Awesome. And Michelle?
Hello, my name is Michelle Recendez. I am the Managed Care Liaison at Transplant Genomics. I work with patients to try to make sure they can get their tests covered, and we want to get as much utilization of our amazing product as possible. So I work closely with the physicians and your transplant coordinators. I'm a former living donor social worker and living donor advocate, and also a former transplant recipient social worker. So it's wonderful to still be part of this world on the other side.
Awesome. Awesome. Sounds incredible. Sounds like you wear a lot of hats.
I do. I'm lucky too. That's what I say. I'm very lucky. So I'm enjoying this. It's a great place to be. Thank you.
Yeah, awesome. So tonight's episode podcast tonight, we're talking about silent rejection, and how you can what it entails, and how you can catch it was the title of the podcast tonight. So let's talk a little bit about silent rejection. Wendy, have you experienced silent rejection?
I have. I went. I was not feeling sick at all, but my labs kind of started to change a little bit, and this was probably about 6 months after the second transplant. And the doctor at the time that I had for that nephrologist decided to modify my medications. Let's try that and see what happens. And then they decided to do a true graft test. And then when that came back suggesting that I needed to proceed with a biopsy, they went ahead and did a biopsy and proved that the kidney was borderline rejecting. So they did have to adjust my medications again to make sure that it wouldn't reject.
Okay, that sounds like a great test for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And Michelle, what is your role with silent rejection? Have you ever experienced it? I'm sure you've seen it with people that you've talked to.
Yeah. So being here and being able to have a test that OmniGraph, which is a combination of two tests we have. One is called TrueGraph and one is called Track. And TrueGraph is going to be looking at the expression of over 120 different genes that present themselves while you're going through an episode of very early subclinical acute rejection. And then our other test, Track, is the test that looks at cell-free DNA. And when an organ is injured, you're going to express more of that cell-free DNA. So that can lead you to putting both TrueGraph and Track together. We call it OmniGraph. And it's the only test on the market that will allow for the quickest, most earliest form of early rejection detection. Because typically, right, like you'll go to your physician's office and your creatinine, once it starts to bump up, then it's sort of a warning sign of, okay, we better see what's going on here. However, this test allows allows the physicians to have the earliest view before that creatinine or other labs might start rising, thus preventing damage as opposed to having the damage already starting to occur.
Yeah, these types of tests are so crucial for transplant patients. We wish that we had these type of tests, years ago, like in the 80s and early 90s. I'm sure people would have loved to had this kind of opportunity to have this kind of technology. Because it's definitely awesome to have.
It is. It's great because you can avoid the biopsy unnecessarily. It's non-invasive, which is probably, as you guys, Wendy, have you had a biopsy? You've had biopsies, I assume.
I had
right?
one.
You had one. That's right.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, probably not the most pleasant experience, I imagine.
Right. So they did. It was because the TrueGraph test came back, unfavorable. So then they went ahead and proceeded with the biopsy. But that is the only biopsy I've had since my transplant.
Okay, yes. So, right, this kind of can guide the physicians in the direction of what they may need to do next, whether it's with immunosuppression or whether it's biopsy. But I'm glad that you've only had one.
Me too.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Wendy, why is protecting your transplant from rejection so important to you?
It's a second lease on life. When you're sick, you're literally fighting to just get through today and stay alive. So now I can live. I was sick for probably 20 years with lupus and then the kidneys failing. So I can do things now that I had to put off.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And when you got that result, I mean, I imagine you had lots of emotions, but what was the waiting and then you finally get it and then it was a relief, or how did that experience go for you when you were waiting
Um,
for your true graft?
so waiting for the true graft.
Mhm.
So now I know I don't have to worry about the biopsy because I know when I get those results, it's like, okay, am I going to get a medication adjustment
Mhm.
or are they going to tell me I need a biopsy? So typically that first time, they'll adjust my medications first and then retest it. So it's a relief knowing that they're not going to right away say you got to go have a biopsy.
Exactly. I can only imagine, because the thought of that, you're just preparing, then you're waiting for the biopsy results. And this is it's such a simple way to get the information that your physician needs and to give you peace of mind. Um,
Absolutely.
what would you say to other kidney transplant recipients about OmniGraph? If you had an audience that you could just describe the whole thing to, not me, but telling them, what would you say as a transplant recipient yourself?
Well, as always, be your own advocate. So I have a great team, and they're part of research and an educational system. So they're forthcoming about information and trials and everything that they're doing. So if you're not lucky enough to have that type of connection, I would push your physicians like just as much as they're going to push a biopsy or some other test. Push them. Now that you have that information, at your fingertips.
That's the best advice. When you go through something like this, I as a social worker, I would always, they'd ask me, what can I do? And it was really, we're your advocate, your healthcare team is, but you have to be your own advocate too, because
Mhm.
not everyone is going to be pushing for the same things.
Right.
And something like this, our test is covered by Medicare, and we work with all private payers as well. So if you have a commercial insurance, we'll be sure to try and get the coverage. We have great teams on my managed care team that I work with that are also able to assist in obtaining coverage. So we want every patient to have this option to look for the earliest form of rejection before the kidney's injured.
Sure. Michelle, can you talk about the science behind OmniGraph?
Yeah, so it's novel. There isn't any other test like this out there. There's some tests that are strictly looking for cell-free DNA, and those tests are beneficial, but they're not picking up the entire picture. So what differentiates us is we have the gene expression profile as well, which is TRAC, and then TrueGraph, which is our cell-free DNA, which is out there. It's very useful. But when you put the two together, you can't compete because you're finding it the absolute earliest form of any type of damage to the kidney before it were to occur. So the science really it's unique. It's the most progressive thing out there right now. And I may be biased, but looking at it even if I were a patient, this is what I would want for my own kidney or my own family or any, received organ. It's truly incredible.
It sounds cutting edge for sure. Sounds
Mm-hmm.
awesome.
It sure
Um,
is.
so, how does OmniGraph differ from other biomarkers?
That's a really good question. And again, the main difference is that it's not just looking at the cell-free DNA, and that is what's released, like we talked about, when the kidney might be damaged. It's actually damaged, and the gene expression it will show you the subacute, so the prior to the actual rejection episode, and then couple that together, and you're given your physician the earliest clue. So then they can start, like Wendy said, possibly lowering immunosuppression, seeing if that helps. Maybe avoiding that biopsy because there's no need to be invasive at this point yet. But if there is, then they have that tool to right away go in and say, okay, this kidney we have to biopsy this now. We don't want to wait before further damage occurs. So you're putting together two tests that truly are so unique and amazing that I just thrilled to be able to help promote and talk about it and have patients like Wendy and so many others that have benefited from this.
Yeah, absolutely. Wendy, how many times in a year do you have to have this test done?
So
Is that-
I don't get it done as much now, but
Mhm.
I think the first year I had it like 4 times. I did it like every 3 months.
Mhm.
Every 3 months.
Mhm.
Okay.
That's fairly common. Most physicians tend to order it that way. It can be ordered as needed. So if a physician has a specific reason why they want to track a baseline and then go from there a certain direction, that's also okay. So, but yeah, a lot of people do it, every 3 months, but it's up to the discretion of the MD, which is nice too.
Mhm. What about insurance? Are most insurance, commonly cover this type of testing?
So in general, there are no biomarkers out there. There's a couple competitors that have similar cell-free DNA testing, and the biomarkers at this time are not covered by commercial insurances. However, when you work with our team, and I'm part of the team, we can get prior auth. We can work to get this covered before you go in, and there isn't any issue with commercial insurance then. We always want to make sure you're aware of any out-of-pocket costs, and that will work with the patient to either alleviate those with our financial assistance program, which is quite helpful and generous. And then we also, again, will work with doing prior authorizations to get the test covered. Just as any important procedure, you want to make sure that you have it covered ahead of time. And we have a great team that does that, and I'm part of it. So it's another fun hat to wear.
Yeah. Sounds awesome.
Yes.
So we've kind of flashed up a couple of times where you can find more information on the website, and I'm sure that's where you're going to answer this next question. But where can people find out more information other than just the website?
So the website is amazing. Your doctors may know, there's a very good chance that they're aware of this. They are certainly going to probably be aware of the alternative to biopsy at this point, which would be cell-free DNA testing and ours gene expression. So bringing it up to your physician is probably the best way to get this moving. Our website is transplantgenomics.com /omnigraph -kidney / and that would be a really nice way to kind of see what we're talking about. And we can put that in the chat before we leave. But that describes both the TrueGraph and track testing, which we call together OmniGraph. And that right there, it's for healthcare professionals. And then we also have on that same page a tab for patients and caregivers with the patient FAQs, patient care and coverage, and then labs at home, which is something else that's offered. So if you're getting your OmniGraph drawn, you could also have some of your regular labs that you go to your physician's office drawn as well at the same time. So there's, maybe you can knock a couple things out at once with your assurance of your OmniGraph test to keep checking on the health of your kidney.
Yeah. So I'm flashing the website on the screen for those of you that don't know or never been to the website. That way you get an idea of what it looks like, the ones that we're talking about. And so this is the main website that you guys are utilize for the Transplant Genomics.
And also something, Wendy, have you heard of the transplant? Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry, I moved on to something separate. Have you ever thought about maybe like if we were to come in or a group to come in and do something with a support group inside of the clinic or the setting, maybe something like that to just kind of further interest in this kind of new technology that so many patients, I think, would like to be aware of? I wonder what your thoughts are on that.
I think it's a good idea just because when you're going to your appointment, you already have your agenda.
Yeah.
So to open up something like this, I think it would be great.
I remember I used to do support groups post-transplant, and the patients would come in and we'd always have a topic, something we wanted to talk about that day. And I'm just thinking, I wonder if patients would find it beneficial to learn about these alternatives because it's like it is, it's out there, but it's not. So you kind of have to search for it or promote it among maybe like NKF or like get out there. We could, advocate for it via different organizations. Just so this message can be out there for everybody.
Absolutely.
Yep, I agree because I've joined some support groups and there are a lot of people who still don't know about it.
Yeah.
I agree with you. Sometimes I'll just happen to be at something and I'll talk to some patients and they will say, no, this is so new. I can't believe this is a potential option. So you're right. The more we can, like Jonathan, again, thanks for having us. The more we can get this message out there, that we can protect your kidney early, and you may be able to avoid any damage whatsoever if there's any early rejection, subacute rejection.
Absolutely. And, as a almost 2 year, I'm like 21-month out post-transplant, I had just, barely heard of this type of testing. And so, and I'm sure there's a lot of other patients out there that are much like me that are shocked to find out that there even is this type of testing. So it's definitely amazing. Definitely got to keep talking about it to get the word out, to let people know about it, because you definitely want to, any of us that's ever been on dialysis and you end up, being blessed with a transplant, you want to keep it as healthy as possible. And if there's a test out there to prove or show some form of early rejection, you definitely want to be a part of it and get that done. So like, look at the statistics here that are on this website. It's incredible. 35% of patients receive a surveillance biopsy in the first year. I think what did the beginning stage? I told you, I said 25% of transplant patients face some form of rejection.
Yeah.
Can you expand on that? Go ahead and expand on that.
Yeah. So it's very common, and even I'm not a physician, of course, but a lot of physicians, it's sometimes discussing the fact that there is subclinical acute rejection going on, and it really is that high. That's a significant number. So the importance of stressing that, and just there's no harm to your patient. It's a very simple blood test. We need to get that out there because it is there. It's not like a 1 or 2 patients a year. If you have a large transplant program, you're going 20-25%. That's a large number of patients that are showing some early signs of rejection, and early intervention is absolute key to protecting that graft.
Yeah, exactly. Michelle, so can you define exactly what silent rejection is?
Silent rejection is while there's some injury occurring to the kidney, but it hasn't created enough injury to cause damage to create a rise in labs. For example, creatinine, which is the typical typical lab marker that the nephrologist will look at post-transplant. And once that rises, you're already in the damage area. So subclinical acute is before damage occurs, and it's while things might be kind of brewing, festering, not everything's sitting right with the kidney. And that's the best time to catch it, because after that, then who knows, you could be down a path of various different drugs, more invasive kind of testing, and IV medications, things that you don't want to have to do if we can avoid it with OmniGraph. It really is so unique in that aspect.
Absolutely. Wendy, do you know why it's called silent rejection?
Yeah, because you don't feel sick at all. There's no signs of it. And
Absolutely.
you just go on. And with me, we found it just because, and actually last fall, I did the OmniGraph, and they had found that the labs were changing. My labs weren't changing, but that test had shown that something needed to be done. So they changed my medication, and then they did a repeat 3 months later, and it was okay. But if I didn't ask for that test at that time, we wouldn't have known.
Absolutely. That's amazing. That would scare me to death, experiencing rejection and not even feel like, because for me right now, I feel great. I feel fine. I'm going about my normal life now as a transplant recipient. There's definitely some things that I have to keep in mind, always, staying away from sick people and wearing my mask and all this type of stuff, using hand sanitizer. But like, if I was to face rejection now, I'd be like, what are you talking about? I feel great. So,
Yes.
yeah. And I think that's why it's so important that we talk about these type of testing to detect early rejection, because obviously there is cases of silent rejection out there. And it's something that we definitely need to talk about, much like need to continue to talk about kidney disease and prevention and organ donation and things like that. But we also need to be talking about things like this as silent rejection, because obviously it can happen.
And it's nice too. The results are really simple for the physician to read. And if the patient were to ever see the report, there's not all kinds of various numbers and whatnot. It's very simple. TrueGraph TX or not TX. So TX is good, and not TX means you may need further investigation. So it's a very straightforward test in terms of interpreting for the physician.
Most definitely.
Hmm.
Would you like to expand, either one of you, this is for Wendy or Michelle, would you like to expand and talk about Eurofins, Transplant Genomics a little bit, and talk about who they are and who they are as a company?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So Eurofins acquired Transplant Genomics a couple of years ago, and Transplant Genomics is under the umbrella of Eurofins. And they wanted to be part of this extremely exciting new world of transplant and get involved. So they decided to take on this whole exciting area, and now we've got this brand new test, OmniGraph. Well, not brand new, but new and novel, and we're just really promoting that and going out there and trying to. It's being used all over the country. We have studies going. It's called TrueLo. So we have research coordinators that are championing this study to see these incredible benefits. And then we also have it ordered commercially for patients that are able to just be part of it through their nephrologist.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Transplant Genomics is solely focused on the transplant patient. So everything we do here is for the patient, to benefit the patient. And ultimately, it's really protecting that graft. And that's the goal for physician, patient, anyone on the care team. And we're part of that. And we are here for the patient. We have client services. We have managed care team that I'm on. We have our wonderful sales team that educates. We have our MSLs, who are the medical science liaisons that go in and will speak with your doctors. So if anyone listening tonight has interest in maybe bringing this up to your physician, you can contact myself or Jonathan, and I'm happy to connect you with someone in your area that could go in and speak with your physician.
Absolutely. Wendy, do you have anything else you want to share?
I just wanted to add on to that when you were mentioning how the insurance doesn't cover. So most of mine have been covered because at the time I was under Medicare, but the last one I had was not, and Transplant Genomics took care of it. I did
That's
not have to worry
awesome.
about that. Mm-hmm.
So the best part about that is we have we have Samantha and Morgan, who do benefit investigations, and what they do is they will run the Blue Cross or UHC benefit, and they will actually tell you if there's any out-of-pocket cost, and if there is, then we can work with the insurance company to try to submit prior auth and get the test covered. And if there is not, then it's like, go ahead, great. And some patients with private insurance will meet their out-of-pocket deductible, so then they can have the coverage. So there's various ways we go about this, and we're very pro working with commercial insurance. Like Medicare and Medicaid is excellent, is covered, but commercial insurance patients too. Like that's a huge thing I'm championing this year, is we want every single patient to be able to get OmniGraph testing.
Yeah. Yeah, I asked about that because, insurance, especially for patients who, don't have a lot of knowledge about insurance. I mean, you got Medicare and Medicaid and then private insurance. It was all confusing to me when I first got diagnosed with kidney disease. I crashed into dialysis in 2019. I had no knowledge of kidney disease whatsoever. And so, honestly, I literally was just, I was like a deer in headlights, if you will. And so then when they started talking to me about Medicare and Medicaid and learning about which one was state and federal and all this stuff, man, it was confusing. So I just wanted to try to get as much information about that for any patient out there that was inquiring about the product.
It's hard. Wendy, what did you, because if you're working, or if your husband's working, or if you have a significant other or whatnot, and you have your transplant, that it's like that whole coordination of benefits period. I remember that always being, when I was working inpatient, a really kind of confusing, tough time, and what's covered and whatnot. How did that go for you immediately after transplant?
So, not so much after transplant, but like when I started dialysis, I went through a couple of social workers even after the first transplant, because each social worker would give me a little bit of information and nobody seemed to know the full picture. And I actually had one tell me, "Oh, you don't need to go on Medicare. You have good insurance." Well, I happen to have a cousin who used to do benefits at another company, and she's like, "Read your policy." And it states right in there the 3-year Medicare thing. If you're on dialysis, you have to go on after a transplant or when you're on dialysis. So it took some digging to get that information.
I know that's really frustrating because it's something that should just kind of be straightforward. But even myself coming into being a clinical social worker for so long, a lot of it isn't always there. But like something like that, yes, like your post-transplant care is covered by Medicare. That's really important to pay your premiums. That's what I always tell the patients, because if you miss or you're, for that month, then it can mess everything up, and getting your immunosuppressants is challenging, and that can throw off the kidney, of course, and we don't want that. But there's so much that you deal with post-transplant. Both of you have been through everything, and those little components, those massive components like insurance that seem little are just tremendous in what it plays into your day-to-day life.
Right, especially if people don't have that information and know that they have to do it. For me, like while I was on Medicare, my insurance still covered my prescriptions. But if someone's purely on Medicare, and people were losing their transplants after 3 years because they only cover for 3 years.
Right. And now there's that new immuno bill, which is exciting. So it's extending the transplant medication coverage. Are you guys familiar?
Yes, I am.
Yeah.
I actually advocated for it with the NKF and talked with my local representatives here in the state of Texas, and we were pushing hard for that with my mentor as well. And he said he had been pushing for it for years.
Yeah.
And so what they were finding out was a lot of kidney patients who could not afford their transplant medications would actually ration out their medications and things like that, and then ended up in rejection.
Yes.
And so then they were back on the same process again, and it was like a spinning wheel, literally. It didn't make sense, and fiscally it didn't make sense as well, because once you go back on dialysis, then it's it's just the same format again with the billing and all of this stuff, and with insurance. And so it definitely made sense to pass this bill for the immunosuppressive bill. So.
For every single reason. Yes. I'm happy for you guys. And it's something that's just the most logical thing in the world. I remember some patients would tell me they'd be looking under their couch for pennies just to be able to scrounge up some meds and it was heartbreaking. So,
thousands of dollars.
Yes.
But again, what we're talking about here is, a possibility where you may not ever face rejection if you can get your doctors to go ahead and order this type of testing and find out that you have silent rejection, and maybe they can stop the rejection from happening with medication and all of these new developments. It's amazing to help patients like us to be a long-term, transplant recipients.
Definitely. I think it really is phenomenal. The science behind it is second to none. And the more we can promote and give patients this opportunity to find the earliest form of rejection, which is subacute, there really is nothing better to protect that graft.
Absolutely. Wendy, you may have already answered this, but how does the OmniGraft test, how does it give you peace of mind knowing that you have that?
Because rather than sticking my organ, you're just giving me a blood test. And I spoke to a doctor probably about a year or two ago, and he said, while it's, a slim chance that, you can lose the kidney from a biopsy, I think he said he had like 3 patients that it did happen to, so it can happen. So knowing that I can avoid that at all costs, it's huge. It's a huge relief.
Absolutely. Michelle, have you had other patients talk to you about that maybe you talk to on a daily basis that talk to you about, the peace of mind that they have from this type of testing?
Definitely. And I think the best thing for them is just like Wendy said, it's just, you have it. It's nothing that's disrupting your life. It's a blood draw like you're going to have anyway. And even if like Wendy said, you won't have symptoms, you're not going to be experiencing anything while this is occurring and wanting to cause damage to your own organ. So yes. And they talk about it, and it's that same thing. I don't have to worry about it. I know it. My coordinator will call me, my physician will call me, let me know everything's good, kidney's healthy. I can get on with my day, get on with my life and everything that I enjoy, that, you've gone through so much, and now you deserve to be at a place of peace when you can have it with one simple blood test.
Absolutely. Is OmniGraft the only test out there on the market right now that can actually detect silent rejection?
Yes, it is. It's the only one that combines the two together, cell-free DNA and gene expression at this time for kidney transplants. And It's just an invaluable tool that every physician should have, a nephrologist and surgeon in their pocket, and just order and give it a shot.
I'm
See the
curious.
results.
I'm curious where exactly does the testing take place? Are the lab work done? Is it here in the States or is it abroad? Or
Yeah, so we have labs in Fremont, California, and then one in Kansas, Kansas City in Kansas. So both run the tests. They're shipped. You get results quickly in a couple days to let your physician determine next steps. But yeah, they're run here. We have phlebotomists that can go to your home and draw you at home. We also have kits that are sent to the physician's office, and they can run them when you come in. Or they could also have you come in if they're just, wanting to check you randomly or at the certain intervals. Wendy, where did you have yours done?
So mine are done directly at the transplant center. So I just align it with my monthly labs when I need to do it, and they just do it right there.
Yeah, that's easy too.
yeah,
Mhm.
that makes another ease of mind there, knowing that you can just go to your transplant center and have it done.
Right.
But what about cases where people can't do that? Do you guys offer like a mail service where maybe you'll mail them the test and then they take it with them or anything like
Yeah.
that?
So you can also bring it to Quest, for example. You can bring it in, and the instructions are in there how to draw. We have phlebotomists that can train anyone as well at any of the Quest clinics to draw. So everything, what we're really ramping up here is our outpatient phlebotomy. We've hired more phlebotomists for every area, every part of the country, because we want patients to access this test and be able to utilize these results right away. So yes, you can use it at the clinic. You can use it at Quest. You can have a kit mailed to you to bring in, like we said, in your doctor's office. So the options are limitless and should be able to really fit any patient situation for what that patient or doctor want together.
Absolutely. So let's talk about social media and things like that. We talked about the website and everybody. I'll have the link in the description and all that where people will be able to find it easily here on YouTube. But let's talk a little bit about social media. Where can people find the Eurofins Transplant Genomics?
Let's see if we can put this up. Hey, Nicole, do you happen to be on? If Nicole's on, if you could
She's not.
She's not. Okay, no worries. I will copy and paste some of the links. I'm going to copy this one first, and I'll share it. This is the one that, Jonathan, you may have already shared, but I will try to send. Let's see. Please. All right. I'm going to see if we can get Nicole back on, because I think she can share these a little bit easier.
Well, just tell us exactly where. Maybe Facebook, Instagram.
Yes.
Okay.
We are, and I can give you, if you let me look at my phone, I can tell you exactly. So we are on
And
LinkedIn.
this is the logo, I believe, that you should be looking for. This here.
Exactly. That's our logo. We're called Eurofins Transplant Genomics on LinkedIn, and we share lots of great information. We share a lot of the events we attend, whether that be NKF events. We'll be at the Transplant Games this coming June, which is in San Diego this year. Really exciting. I'll be part of that as well. Yeah.
Awesome.
I can't wait to interact with the patients at this event. So we're going to have a presence there. We're at all the events where you're discussing ways to protect your kidney, essentially. So that's LinkedIn. I'm going to give you the.
Hello.
Hi, Nicole.
Sorry, I was
good.
watching from the viewer side, but all of our we're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn. And it's at Eurofins TGI. That is our tag. I'll also put it in the chat on the YouTube so everyone can view it.
Cool.
And then we also have a Get Ahead of Rejection channels as well. And that's Rejection Guide. It's at Rejection Guide, and that is on Instagram and Facebook. And I'll be sure to put that information in the chat so you can click from there.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Thanks,
Nicole.
Thanks, Nicole. Appreciate you.
Yeah. So please engage with our social media sites. They really are informative, and they keep you up to date on all the science happenings and all just the patient events that we do as well. And we'd love for everyone to join in when you can, be part of it.
Absolutely. I mean, all the information we've shared here has been awesome, and we had a patient story here with Wendy, and then you've been very informative, Michelle. So this has been an incredible, informative podcast with lots of great information shared about a great product, and sounds like an awesome company. And so it sounds like doing great things. If you had some words of hope for those out there that are experiencing, rejection or anything like that, since you've already been through it, Wendy, what type of advice or words of hope would you be able to share with a patient?
Sure, just always be your own advocate, stay positive, and communicate with your teams. I mean, that goes a long way.
Yeah, absolutely. Communication goes a long way for
Mhm.
sure. If you're not feeling well and you're hiding that, or things aren't just looking right, you definitely need to reach out to your team and not
Yeah.
wait.
It's
Waiting shouldn't be in your vocabulary.
No.
And I think that's the best part of this test, OmniGraph. You don't have to wait for something to get bad. You're detecting it before anything is going to get to the point of damage. So you said that without saying it, Wendy, but that's basically what it is. We're protecting things before it can be harmful. So it's
Mhm.
like this test is your own advocate, just like you'd be your own patient advocate.
Yeah,
Thank you, Wendy.
most definitely, and it's really sounds like that this test is a godsend for many patients, because there are diseases out there that they could face rejection again really early. I was like FSGS can actually reoccur. A lot of FSGS patients are always concerned about whether or not that's going to come back and take their kidney, by form of rejection. So and there's other diseases out there as well that can do that as well. But I just mentioning FSGS as one, but I think this test would definitely benefit every kidney transplant, or and this can work with other transplant patients as well. Am I correct?
Yeah, so we're in the works with some other new exciting things with our research and development team. So stay tuned, and you'll see a lot of exciting things I think that may be hopefully coming out. And we want to work with all organs, and protect all organs, and work with every transplant patient that we can benefit.
Absolutely. What type of medications can they give people that do face rejection? What is the next step after that? I'm sure people are wondering, like, okay, so after I get the test, I find out that I'm in rejection. What is usually the process after that?
Well, Wendy, what was your process? Then I can describe what I've seen
Mhm.
in my inpatient days.
Right. So when I had the biopsy and they knew that it was borderline rejecting, they gave me, the usual mega doses of prednisone, IV, and then starting on high milligrams until you're tapered off. And then this last time that they adjusted, they just increased one of my pills from like 50 milligrams to 75 milligrams.
Mhm.
So I take three different immunosuppressants. So, but once
Yeah.
they increased that, that was just a small change compared to the other time, and everything's been fine since.
That's exactly what I was going to say. When you catch it early, those small adjustments can be made that aren't necessarily life altering. But once it's caught later, you may have to do different kinds of infusions or different kinds of not as comfortable types of treatments that I'm sure many patients have been through who are at like a later stage of rejection. But once it's caught early, it's usually adjusting immunosuppression, um,
Yeah.
increasing steroids or adding steroids if you weren't on it, for example.
Yeah.
So it's just giving you that benefit of time and of not such an invasive next step.
Yeah. Yeah. Good old prednisone.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I know that's not fun either. I know
Yeah.
that's
No.
you. I'm
Yeah.
sure you've experienced that, Jonathan, as well.
Actually, my team didn't start me on it, and I've been blessed. But I've heard a lot of stories about long-term use of it, and a lot of people have had good success with it. And some people say it really affected their bones and their moods and things like that. But it sounds like it's definitely got to be a part of the therapy if you do go into a rejection. So
Right. And then the nice thing is you can taper it back down again. So if you catch
yeah.
and the earlier the better. So anything then it's sort of like, okay, you can start it out, then you can decrease again, as opposed to like these massive doses of medications or infusions that some people need when rejection is caught later.
Awesome. This has been really informative. We've shared a lot of information, and again, guys, definitely let's check out the website. Like I said, I'll have the links in the description. And it's been a real honor to do this podcast with Wendy and Michelle. And I think we could probably go on for another hour if we had the time. But we're going to go ahead and close out the podcast for now. And we may have to get together and do another one of these with you guys. This has been really awesome and really informative. Sounds like an amazing product, amazing company. Any last words or any shout outs before we end the podcast?
I'll let Wendy go first. You have anything, Wendy?
Thanks for having us. And I've said it a couple times, be your own advocate.
That's
yourself.
And that is such great advice. It
Mhm.
literally is. Be your own advocate. Stand up for your rights. Stand up for yourself. Don't be afraid to ask questions. To me, there's no such thing as a dumb question when it comes to your health. So that's amazing advice, Wendy. Michelle?
Couldn't agree more. Advocate. If you're not familiar with this test, bring it up to your physician or coordinator. We are here to support you. Reach out to any of us. I'd be happy to help connect you with someone like a medical science liaison who can further explain if your physician's curious and isn't aware of it. So anything we can do to help protect your kidney, we're here for you.
Absolutely. Well, again, guys, I really appreciate everyone's support tonight for the podcast and for everyone showing up and watching. We've had quite a few viewers during the course of the podcast, and I really appreciate the opportunity to share your story and share the information for Eurofins Transplant Genomics, and it's amazing. And I really hope and pray in my lifetime that we just continue to see advancement in medical technology like this, that transplant recipients like myself and Wendy will live a very long life with our transplanted organ. So thanks to everyone tonight. We're going to go ahead and close out this podcast, and you guys stay safe out there. Take care of your kidneys. God bless.
Thanks for having us, Jonathan. Take care, everyone.
No problem.
Jonathan is created as an informational, educational, and entertainment show. Hope with Jonathan hosts, guests, partners provide information on the basis of research and personal experiences, and is not to be taken as or implied as diagnosis of any disease or treatment. Hope with Jonathan, its host and guests and partners, recommend and encourage you to speak to your medical team before implementing any treatment or diagnosis found on this show or any product, service associated to Hope with Jonathan.